Today is June 15th, 2013, and we are interviewing Mr. Daniel Ciscek in Springfield, Illinois. Mr. Ciscek was born on December 25th, Christmas, 1944. Mr. Ciscek, my name is Cheryl Walker. I'm with the Illinois State Library, and I'll be interviewing you today. Could you share for the record what branch of service you served in?
I was in the United States Marine Corps.
And what was your highest rank?
Sergeant E5.
And what years were you?
I enlisted in June of 1962, and I was discharged in October of 1966.
So that was during Vietnam?
Correct.
Okay. Can you share your history and story with us?
Yes, I was born into a military family. For about the first 13 years of my life, I was an Army dependent. My father retired from the Army in 1958. After high school, I enlisted in the Marines. Went directly in after high school when I was 17.
What made you decide?
Being in a military family, uncles that were career Army, career Marines. My father being career Army, I was used to the life of military. That's one of the reasons why I joined the military, especially in the Marine Corps. Seeing what Army life was like, having an uncle that was in the Marines, I more or less went to his side on the Marine Corps. I felt comfortable with them.
Where did you take your basic training at?
It's Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, California. After boot camp, I was assigned, I had a choice between 3 years when I enlisted or 4 years for guaranteed aviation. I took the aviation portion of it, and I went to school in San Diego after boot camp as an air controller. So, my first duty station was in Beaufort, South Carolina, Naval Air Station down there. It was a Marine Air Control Squadron. I was working with ground-controlled intercepts. I was asked if I wanted to apply for the OCS program. There were openings for 2 years of Bainbridge, Maryland, Naval Prep School, and then going on to Annapolis. I had some naval officers come down, gave me the test, a written test, and the psychological test, which I passed. But when I took my medical test for Annapolis, they found out I had a kidney problem. Spent a month in Charleston Naval Hospital. The doctor says it was somebody born with 6 fingers. It's abnormal, yet it doesn't hurt me, but it still disqualified me for going. I then volunteered to go overseas to Iwakuni, Japan, with a Marine Air Control Squadron out there. And while I was out there, that was in 1963, 1964. I spent some time in Iwakuni. I worked with the Thai Air Force in Bangkok, Thailand, with the Air Operations Center for a month. After that, I was asked to join the Marine Corps Rifle and Pistol Team, which I fired for 3 months in Okinawa. Qualified for the Nationals as a Tyro shooter, which is a first year. Every team had to have a first-year shooter, but they canceled it, the national matches at Camp Perry, Ohio, because of Vietnam starting up. I was then assigned to Headquarters Squadron in Da Nang. Since there was no enemy aircraft coming over into South Vietnam, I was cross-trained as a forward air controller. They wanted as many pilots flying, not on the ground. So I worked as a forward air controller and in the Tactical Air Control Center in Da Nang. I worked out of Da Nang, Chu Lai, and Marble Mountain, just south of Da Nang. After Vietnam, I came home in December of 1965, was then assigned to a Marine Air Support Squadron in Cherry Point, North Carolina. I was supposed to have been discharged, but they extended me involuntarily for 6 months. Then I was discharged in October of 1966. That's my life in a nutshell.
Okay. I didn't realize that there was Marine aviation.
Right. We supported our own troops. We didn't rely on the Navy. We don't rely on the Air Force. We welcome their existence, but Marine pilots taking care of Marines. We train together. We take care of our own. We're our own support.
Where does Marine pilots train?
They train with the Navy in Pensacola, Florida. Most of your pilots come out of Annapolis, and they have their choice of whether they want to go into the Marines or the Naval Air Wings. Marines are mostly ground close air support. When I was there, we ran F-4 Phantom jets, which you can go air to air or air to ground. A lot of A-4 Skyhawks, which was air to ground. We thrive on our own close air support, and it goes back to World War II.
When you say that, okay, what you did, can you explain, what kind of communication you gave them?
Well, as a ground-controlled intercept, it's called GCI. There's GCI, ground-controlled intercept, and there's GCA, which is ground-controlled approach. Your airports, your civilian airports, use ground-controlled approach. In other words, they're guiding the aircraft in for a landing into, it might be VFR, visual flight rules, or it might be where the controller would actually be in a fog or rain or something like this. Ground-controlled intercepts. By using radar, you can see our own aircraft versus an enemy bogey aircraft. Our own aircraft have what they call IFR, they have a mode on the aircraft where it shows up different codes on the radar screen so we know friendlies from bogeys. We can control the aircraft until in the case of a Phantom jet, they have a RIO operator, which is a radar intercept operator that sits in the back seat. He has radar that can control the aircraft. We control that aircraft until he picks it up on his radar to pick up bogeys. Again, in Vietnam, their MiGs weren't coming south, so we were useless, so they cross-trained us immediately as FAC or forward air controllers.
In Thailand, you were stationed, no, Japan.
Japan and Iwakuni, Japan, correct.
Japan. Did you live on base?
Yeah, we lived in it.
And you were training?
We were working as a Marine Air Control Squadron out of Iwakuni. A lot of times with the aircraft before they take off, we would be in contact with the pilot, giving him his mission, who to contact, what altitude to fly at, what vectors to fly in, until a controller would pick them up.
Can you tell us a little bit about Japan? What the weather was like?
It was cold in the winter. We had snow. It was warm in the summertime. Iwakuni's on the southern Honshu, which is the southern part of the island, right off the ocean. We had typhoons. We lived in Quonset at the time, our squadron. So during the typhoon season, they would cable it down so it wouldn't blow away. Again, I only spent a few months there because my other duties, was transferred around.
Okay. So you were there during a typhoon?
Yeah, we were there during a typhoon, right? It was just like a hurricane, but they call it a typhoon.
Okay. And did you get to have R&R in?
We would go on. We would go off base, and it was just like any city that was around a military installation. Didn't mingle too much with the locals because it wasn't that far off from the war, Second World War.
Did the Quonset huts, were they from World War II?
Yeah, they were from World War II. Yeah.
Okay, so they probably had they been updated at all?
Yeah. Well, we had to live in it, so we had to make do. What we have, they were clean, they were neat, they functioned.
Did you sleep in cots, or were they?
Yeah, we had bunks, double bunks in there, and it was cramped at times, but it was that's the way we were accustomed to it.
Okay. What about like showers and things? Did you have shower houses?
Yeah, we had a shower right in the Quonset huts. We had lavatories in there and commodes and showers. They were communal, but it was just what you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early '60s, it's not like now.
Did you have a mess hall and?
Yeah, we had mess hall. We had our enlisted club and NCO clubs, and they were all Quonset huts.
Was the food pretty good?
Yeah. The Navy served good meals aboard naval air stations because you had so much transit with aircraft, pilots coming in and out, and everything else. They fed us good.
Okay, so you were actually on a Navy air.
Iwakuni was a Marine Corps air station.
So, okay, it was both.
Right.
Okay. Your training in the States, now your basic, was that mostly grunt training?
Yeah, everybody. In the Marine Corps, whether you're going to be a cook, whether you're going to be in the air wing, or you're going to be an infantry, the first thing you learn is to be an infantry rifleman. It may not be like another branch in the service where you're going to be a cook. You go to cooking school. Your basic would be working towards being a cook. In the Marine Corps, your first job is a rifleman. Everybody goes through the same training, no matter what you're going to be or what you're going to do. You went through the same training. At that time, I believe it was 12 weeks of boot camp, and then we went to Camp Pendleton for 4 weeks of infantry training. And no matter who you are, what you do, or what you're going to do, you go through the same training.
Can you explain about the Marine basic and infantry training? The Marines have such a camaraderie.
In the Marine Corps, we believe in a chain of command. A PFC, a private first class, or private first class, he reports this to a lance corporal. Lance corporal reports to a corporal. I've seen branches, being an Army brat, where a lieutenant would tell a private what to do, and the private would turn around and, I'll do it when I feel like it. Usually it just goes by the wayside. In the Marine Corps, if a sergeant tells a corporal what to do, the corporal does it first, then he asks the question. We believe in that the NCOs are the backbone of the Marine Corps. Your non-commissioned officers, your sergeants, your staff sergeants, your gunnery sergeants. I've seen lieutenants and first and second lieutenants go to NCOs because of the experience in that. We believe in a discipline where if you don't question somebody, if somebody's going to tell you to do something, you do it immediately. Don't question it, because that person is not at his position because of politics or anything. It's hard to explain that we all went through the same training. We all understand a chain of command. We all cover each other's back. The guy next to you, we don't call them foxholes, we call them fighting holes. The guy next to you, he's covering your back and you're looking after him. We all, no matter if you were in the 40s, the 50s or the 90s, we all went through the same training. It may have trained differently with different equipment, but it was all, and everything was, that camaraderie was all instilled back the same. You very seldom see people go from the Marine Corps to the Army or to the Navy or to the Air Force, but you see Air Force people come to the Marines. When you go to Marine Corps boot camp, that's the only service that once you go to Marine Corps boot camp, say if you do go into the Air Force, you don't attend their boot camp. But if you come from the Air Force to the Marine Corps, you go through the Marine Corps boot camp.
When you went overseas, did you fly?
No, we went aboard ship.
A Navy ship?
We went aboard a Navy ship. In fact, in 1952 or 1953, my mother and sister and I were dependents going to Okinawa on the USS Gaffey. In 1964, I was on the same ship as a Marine going overseas.
And what ship was that?
A Gaffey.
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 I didn't catch that. So that's quite a large ship. And
it was a troop transport.
Okay. What were your conditions on that ship?
It was cramped in the whole, there might have been 5 or 6 hammocks stacked up. It was just in a troop transport. You go to mess hall in lines with trays and metal trays and that, but we stopped in Hawaii for a couple of days and then we proceeded on to Yokohama.
You're quite a tall man.
I'm 6 foot.
6 foot. Did you kind of hang over the
No.
hammock? You didn't?
No.
So
No, it was comfortable.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get sick?
No.
So I know that, or I've been told, I don't know firsthand, but I've been told that Navy ships are built different than, and they handle the ocean much better. They don't have sway bars and things like that, but there's not a lot of motion.
Well, you're not on a cruise, on a Carnival cruise. You're in a military. You're going over in a troop transport. And I never got seasick. I just other people probably did. I did not.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Letters.
Letters?
Yeah, back then we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers or anything like that. It was just letters. Again, being in the military, family, aunts and uncles, and they understood the value of a letter. So I got mail regularly from home, and care packages from home and that periodically.
Did you, were you able to get your care packages in good time?
Sure, especially being in the air wing, you weren't out. I wasn't out in the field a lot of times, in the middle of nowhere, being around the aircraft, and we got our mail pretty regularly.
So they were still fresh.
Sometimes the mail would be, trying to catch up with you, but no, it was just strictly by mail.
Did you guys share all your care packages and
Sure.
things like that?
Sure.
Did you get newspapers from home or?
Not too many newspapers, no. And I think it was the climate back in the States, back in '65, and when I was over there. There was a lot of stuff going on. I think my family just,
Did you have plenty of supplies?
When we went over there in Vietnam in early '65, we still had equipment, C rations and K rations and things from World War II in Korea. I don't think we were geared. We didn't have any refrigeration, so we couldn't have any fresh meats or vegetables or or milk or anything like that. It was all powdered. We had field rations. We lived on that spam and corned beef that they would bread, fry, boil, bake, anything you could deal with it. The equipment, the clothing we had were basic utilities. We didn't have jungle suits and jungle boots and things like this. They weren't geared for the tropics, and a lot of the utilities, some people call them fatigues in the Marine Corps, we call them utilities, were rotting out at the seams because of the humidity and the heat. They just weren't geared for that type of warfare. They were still, the Marine Corps was, and I don't know about the Army, but they were still geared for the way they fought a Second World War. So it was a challenge.
Is there any type of food from field rations or K rations or anything that you just won't eat?
There was a few of them, ham and lima beans and things like this. We used to get in the K rations and the C rations boxes of cigarettes that were the green Lucky Strikes from World War II in Korea, in the green packaging. When I say green, the green packaging. Hardtack and jellies and things. But again, they were all from World War II in Korea. We didn't have the MREs and what they have now.
Were there any entertainers that came over to see you?
Yeah, there was, what the heck was her name? Martha Ray. I mean, that's back from World War II. You know, she must have been 70 years old back then. That was the only thing we saw one time.
Mm-hmm. And where was that?
That was in Da Nang. It was in Da Nang.
Mm-hmm. Did she come with Bob Hope?
No, I have never seen him.
Do you remember the day your service ended?
Yeah, I just thought I was going to make a career out of the Marine Corps. I got extended involuntarily, which I accepted. They tried to get me to re-enlist, but the more I'm thinking about it, I was not going to go back to Vietnam. If I would have re-enlisted, I probably would have gone back at least two more times, and I didn't want to do it. Not the way that things were being done over there at that time. Sometimes there was confusion. Nobody knew what the right hand was doing. Getting permission from politicians to go into areas to get people out. I didn't want any part of it anymore. That's when I came back to Chicago and tried to establish a civilian life.
Did you take any time off?
No, I went right to work.
And where did you go to work at?
I was going to go to school, but then I decided I just wanted to start making some money and support myself. I can't remember exactly what my first job was, but I've been working ever since.
Did you ever take advantage of, like, the GI Bill?
No.
Okay. You showed me a challenge coin from your unit.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain that challenge coin?
About a year ago, I'm ready to retire. My wife is retired, and I wanted to take some time and go visit some of the old places like Cherry Point, North Carolina, just driving up there and going in there. So I contacted Cherry Point Marine Air Support Squadron, Mass 1, which was the outfit I was discharged from. I had talked to the Sergeant Major of Mass 1 and told me that they were going to be disbanding the unit, Mass 1. I don't know what new designations they were, but the Mass 1 goes back to World War II. All of a sudden in the mail one day, I got this challenge coin from him with a little note saying, here's a little remembrance of your old outfit. So.
And what were the challenge coins for?
I don't know what some people do. I don't know why they call them challenge coins. I just use it as a good luck piece.
Um, did you make any close friendships with any of your?
Yeah, there was a couple of people I made close friendships from. Um, One of them, we enlisted together. We went to school, to a boot camp in school together, and then we broke up. And the last time I saw him was in July. I happened to run into him. And another one was a guy named Larry, who was a full Comanche Indian that I met him down in July also one day at a mess hall, and hadn't seen him since boot camp. But being in the air wing as a controller, it wasn't like you were in an outfit, like an infantry company, that you would move as a unit. We moved as individuals. Um, for instance, Mass 1 in Cherry Point, they stayed there. Uh, People moved to another mass outfit or another Marine Air Control Squadron or something like that, but that unit stayed there. Mass 1 stayed in there. It wasn't like you were in the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, and the entire 1st Battalion moved, you know. So you would meet people, and then you'd meet them in another support squadron, or, you know, it's like that. You would move as an individual, not as a complete unit. Maybe they do that now, but not back then.
So they don't have reunions for you guys?
When I was at Beaufort Naval Air Station, Max 4, they had a reunion coming up. I've read in another magazine, but it was for everybody. You know, you could have been there in '63, you could have been there in '73. You know, not as everybody from 1965. You know, stuff like that.
Did you? I know that you are a member of the DAV.
Correct.
And what chapter do you belong to?
To 103 out of Joliet, Crest Hill, Illinois.
Okay. Are there any other veteran organizations that you belong to?
I belong to the American Legion. I did belong to the VFW, but I'm sticking strictly with the DAV. I think that's where I enjoy myself.
I don't know if you have any children or grandchildren. Or
I have 5 sons. My number 2 son was a Marine in the Marine Reserves back in the 80s, in the late 80s, and that. He ended up not going to Saudi on Desert Storm with his outfit, and he went to Cuba. We're out down there for as a guard.
So my next question was, would you encourage young men and women to go into the service today?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Do you feel that your service time benefited you?
Most definitely.
And would you repeat it again?
Yes, I would. I would, without question. Without question.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No. No. I like the military life. I was brought up on it. There are some things I'd like to see changed to get the politics out of it, but you can have politics wherever you go. So that's all I know.
Well, Mr. Ciscek, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for the time that you gave our country.
I don't feel I should be patted on the back or anything like that. It's what I wanted to do. I don't look for accolades or things. It's just that I liked what I was doing. It's a good life for people, but there's some people that aren't geared for military life. I, I thank you for your comments on that, but I don't feel it's necessary. It's something I wanted to do. I volunteered. I wasn't forced into it.
I understand that. I do feel that everyone that served our country should be thanked.
There's a
and
lot of
honored.
people that physically can't do it that would like to do it. I feel sorry for those people that can't do what they want to do. I did what I want to do.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for sharing your history and your story
You're more than welcome.
and letting me be part of that.
Thank you.